The Louis Bellina Show, Friday edition, hour 2 with Tony Catalina and Caleb Rapoli. I teased it at the beginning, and we'll talk about it again here. Stick around to the end. In the last segment, the very last segment, we're going to open up the ticket booth thanks to Dixie Tire Company. Caller number 5 will win a $50 gift card at Rudy's Barbecue. Like I said, keep it here. We'll let you know when to call in and when you can win that. Also, the Texas Mobile One Lube Express inbox is open. 979-693-1150. We've been heavy Texas A&M football here on my last show hosting on Fridays. And I will say, I don't know exactly what I can say, but if you are tired of me and you don't want as much of me, I'm sorry. Even though I won't be hosting Fridays once the season gets going, I will have an extended more time here on Wednesdays, and that's a tease. I don't know exactly if I was supposed to say that, but expect a little bit more of me in season here on the Zone in a couple of different varieties and different ways.
Breaking all the news today.
Yeah, breaking all the news. I think I'm going to text from Louie and say, you're done.
You violated your NDA.
Yeah, the non-disclosure agreement of what a potential thing is here. But no, I digress. It's been great. It's been fun. This has been a learning experience for me. It's been a really good time to be able to talk ball with y'all. And obviously, I'm excited to continue it. Maybe next July we continue to do that. What do you got, Caleb?
We do have a text in the Texas Mobile One Lube Express inbox. Eric, the bartender, weighing in on our discussion about the mindset of the team.
Okay.
He said, teams are a reflection of the coach. Elko made it clear this team has done nothing without winning an SEC championship or a national championship. That's the message. That's the goal. Elko wrestled the culture in year 1, provided the path in year 2. Year 3 is the next step for the future of this program.
Great text from Eric the bartender, and Tony the journalist agrees. And so I agree. Like, it's year 1 was coming in. He had to assess what they had here, right, and figure out how much work he had to put in to get to where they wanted to be. So when you sit there and you get a, I know it's a moving target, and I've had this conversation with people before. There's championship aspirations and there's championship standards. I think there's programs in the country that have championship standards, and to this point, prior to Mike Elko, they had championship aspirations, and I think there's a difference there. And I don't know if anybody should be offended by the aspiration versus standard thing. I think you're just being real. So year 1, to get in, to go to a bowl game, impressive, right? You wish you would have won it. There was chances. They were knocking on the door. If people remember 2024, Marcel Reed led a comeback. He led a game-winning drive, and then the defense gave up a touchdown at the end. Elko was not happy about that, right? And then 2025, they honestly kicked down the door and said, hey, we're 11-2. We're going to go to the playoffs. We're going to host a playoff game. And now you feel like if that natural progression continues, what's next, right? And that's why I've talked about how important this year 3 is. Can A&M win a championship? Can A&M find themselves in that consistent year-to-year championship conversation? We talked about the resources. We talked about the coaching staff. We talked about the state that we're in. There's all reasons to believe they can be in that conversation. They just got to go ahead and do it. And I think some of these talking points a year from now will be vastly different if A&M finds themselves in that conversation. But part of that conversation is the stranglehold that the Big Ten has on college football right now. And I don't know if you heard Curt Cignetti, anybody listening to this, what Curt Cignetti said at the Big Ten Media Days yesterday. And obviously it came off a little brash, came off a little, braggadocious, but I'm not mad at him for saying what he said. And we're going to play it here in a second. But, man, Big Ten have won 3 of the last 3 championships. So if you're going to swing around and act like, tough guy, I think this might be the time to do it. And based off what Cignetti said, I think he's feeling himself a little bit right now.
The Big Ten is the best league in football, and a lot of really good football teams. It's hard to win on the road. Very physical football teams, very well coached. It definitely prepares you for the playoffs. There's no doubt about it. The numbers speak for themselves. I mean, we don't run a hype machine up here in the Midwest. We believe everything's earned, not given. And when we fall short, we say we fell short. We don't cry a river, whine, and complain. All right? And that's why we're the best.
Coach,
I don't know. What do you think? Listen, that's a heck of a statement from him. It's a lot to unpack. Personally, I'm intrigued what you think about it. I'll give a couple of thoughts on it. Like I said before the clip, when you've won championships and you've turned a perennial doormat into a national champion, right? Like Indiana lived in infamy as a football program until Curt Cignetti got there. So maybe he can puff his chest out and say, hey, I'm different. This program's different because I'm different. And then you look at Michigan, you look at Ohio State, you look at Oregon. Big Ten is obviously doing their thing right now. But unpacking it all, it feels a little premature to say because you don't whine and you don't complain that you're the best conference in college football. I come from the Northeast, right? I come from ACC country. I come from like non-Big Ten, non-SEC. I don't know any or many people where I'm from that would concede that the Big Ten is outright better than the SEC. And what metric, right? In my opinion, who puts out the most NFL talent, right? Who has been the best historically for decades at this point? Caleb, I'm intrigued to see what you think. If you agree with him, I'm tend to incline. I don't necessarily agree with him, although if he's going to say that comment, right now is probably the time to do it.
Right now is absolutely the time to do it. That's always my opinion on any time somebody's being brash or overly confident or cocky. If they are coming off of winning the whole thing,
yeah,
that's you get to do that.
Say what you want.
That's the benefit of winning is you're the number one team. That makes you better than everybody else. So you're allowed to say stuff like that. As far as is the Big Ten the best conference in college football, and you bring up, who sent the most talent to the NFL and, the depth of teams in the league. I think that the SEC, if you seeded the teams and the best team in the SEC played the best team in the Big Ten, second best, and so on and so forth, all the way down, I think the SEC would probably win more games.
Sure.
So I think we have more teams that can actually compete at a high level. But I don't really know if we need all that criteria. I really think the Big Ten winning 3 national championships in a row kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah, but to your point, maybe to the counter to that point is how many, if you did like a 15-year sample size, how many did the SEC win, right? Like if we were able to look, and I can talk if you can look that up, how many of the last 20 championships were won by SEC teams? And you don't get the moniker like it just means more here. And I understand like my Cowboys, right? America's team. A nickname given or a nickname earned is totally different. But yes, you're feeling yourself because you won the last 3. Does that mean now that there's a new king atop of the throne? I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. We had said it a couple times now, like this is the perfect time to have that conversation. I think my problem is sometimes the conversation gets a little disingenuous because they'll be like, oh, they beat Florida. Big Ten teams are better in bowl games against the SEC. Like whatever that metric is, totally fine. But I know people, they talk about the complaining, but I don't think it's complaining when it's valid. When you say, hey, we got 9-game SEC schedules where you don't get to play, you don't get to play the worst teams in the country on a week-to-week basis, and then, because you got to go play Michigan and Ohio State, like, now you get to talk tough. I don't know. And listen, individually speaking, Indiana was the best football team in the country last year, full stop, right? They beat everybody. They steamrolled everybody. They deserved the championship. Does that now merit to say, like, we're the best conference in the world? He's got to say that, so I respect it. But I don't know if you got the numbers that Caleb, does my point bear true, or is it kind of like false hope here trying to defend SEC?
So I'm going off of since 2003 because that was the last time that there was a disputed national championship.
Sure.
LSU and USC.
That's
so
smart.
I'm not counting that. So
Smart.
Since then, 2004 to 2025, 22 national champions, 14 have been from the SEC.
Yeah.
But with that, just 4 from the Big Ten. So Ohio State in the very first year of the college football playoff, 2014, and then the last 3 in a row.
Right.
So you can definitely say, in the 21st century, the SEC, if you take the full body of work from the 26 seasons that we've had since 2000, the SEC is definitely the best conference in football, especially if your sole metric is national championships, because they have 14 and a half.
What do you play it for? Like, what do you play it for? So when you look at this, for me, they're the hottest conference in college football right now. Like, no doubt about it. Like, there's no debate. But to me, to be the best, it's longevity. Now, if we come back here and Ohio State or Oregon or Michigan or even Indiana wins it again this year, like, I'm gonna scratch my neck and say, hey man, maybe I'm wrong, right? Like maybe the tide is turning, and I do think the transfer portal is playing a huge factor in all this, right? I think it's evening the playing field of, hey, we got money, we can spend it, we can do this, we can compete with the big dogs because we have boosters, we have billionaires, we have other people that really invest and care in these programs. I mean, look at Indiana. Who is it? Mark Cuban's their biggest donor. Like, when you got the Cube throwing money around, like, you're going to be all right. Yeah, so when you got Mark Cuban throwing the money around, like, you're going to be okay. But with that being said, like, the playing field unequivocally has been evened. All right, SEC has a real, like, viable threat to the throne right now. Does that necessarily mean that they're off the Iron Throne at the moment? I don't know if I'd agree. At this moment, the crown may be in pieces, but I think A&M has, not A&M, I think SEC has more in their possession at the moment.
So I agree, in principle that the best team or the best conference in the country, you can't just look at, a couple seasons normally. But I do think that because we are in an era of change and shift in the world of amateur athletics, that with this NIL era, the only titles that have been won pretty much in the NIL era have been from the Big Ten.
It's true.
So the last time the SEC won a national championship was 2022 with Georgia, the second of their back-to-back championships. And that was really, there was some NIL and some transfer portal, but it wasn't really until the next couple seasons that it became as widespread as it is now. And since that's happened, only Big Ten teams have been able to capitalize on the opportunity and win a national championship.
I mean, that's facts, right? That's hard to deny that fact, and I think you could look at different variables. The thing that Curt Cignetti tried to poke a hole in, and because it's a real talking point with SEC pundits and coaches and players, is I think it's a totally valid claim, is the day-to-day grind in the SEC is actually a real thing, right? The fact that A&M and these other SEC schools are going to have to play 9 conference opponents in arguably, and up until 2 years ago, there wasn't an argument, arguably the hardest conference in football, means that there's going to be cannibalism, right? There's going to be people who are going to knock each other off. They're going to be wear and tear. Like, what conference do we know where a South Carolina can come into Kyle Field and put up 30 and a half, right? Like, who's doing that at the bottom of the Big Ten to Michigan?
Yeah,
no one.
You're not seeing Northwestern or Purdue do that.
No way. Purdue is not hanging 30 on Ohio State in the shoe. You know what I mean? Like, it's not happening. But to that point, like, I think, so shame on SEC, right? Shame on them for having talent, right? Their biggest credit is also their biggest detriment, is the fact that any given year, 11 of the 16 teams can beat each other, right? Maybe at the bottom feeders like Arkansas is going to struggle, and maybe Kentucky will struggle. But apples to apples, you got 10 teams that can really beat each other. And Georgia has found a way to separate. Alabama during Saban really separated. LSU during the Joe Burrow time, they separated. Like, yes, the Big Ten has a moment right now, but I'm not worried about the moment. And again, I leave room for the possibility that a year from now, we're sitting here talking about another different Big Ten champion that I'm not going to have a ground to stand on anymore. But as we speak, Cignetti had to say what he had to say because he's the national title defending winner of the Big Ten. He's got to stand up for him. I just think it's a little premature at the moment to be talking grandly like that.
If we do have another Big Ten champion, I don't think it's going to be another unique one like we've had the last 3 years. I think it's either between Ohio State and Indiana, whoever ends up winning that conference, they're probably the favorite to win it all.
Would Oregon be considered unique?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying it's gone Michigan, Ohio State, Indiana.
Sure.
So if we have a fourth Big Ten team win a national championship, then I think the SEC loses all claim.
Yeah.
If it's a fourth different one, then the SEC kind of has to admit that the Big Ten is the better conference.
No, I totally.
At that point.
Yeah, it's really, really, really it's hard to decide. It's hard to say otherwise. And so to that point, I mean, and real quick, because we're going to hit a break here in a minute or two, but you named the people in the Big Ten that got the best chance, right? It's Michigan, it's Ohio State, Indiana going to defend their title. Is it Oregon? who in the SEC, when it all shakes out, do you think has the best chance? Is it Georgia? Is it Ole Miss? Is it, it's harder. It's obviously Texas is in that conversation. Like, who do you sit and say, like, toe-to-toe, I think this SEC power can handle a Big Ten power?
I really think any of those teams at the top upper echelon of the conference can compete with the Ohio States and the Indianas. My favorite to win the SEC right now is Georgia, which I know is, when you say that, it's chalky, but when you, again, looking at the last 3 national championships, they haven't even, have they played in one?
No.
So they haven't shown the ability to adjust fully to this era of NIL.
Yeah.
Kirby Smart is, widely respected as one of the top probably 2 or 3 coaches in the nation. A lot of people have him number 1, and I'm not going to disagree with that, but he hasn't shown the ability to win the big one in this new era. So the Big Ten, like we said, if it's a 4th different team that wins it, then you can't just say they're being carried by the teams at the top, because 4 different teams winning a national championship, that shows that you do have depth. And maybe the bottom feeders in your conference aren't as good, but who cares about that if you have 4 or 5 different teams that can win a natty?
I totally agree. And again, I think Curt, if there's, like we said before, this is the moment to talk your talk. And again, next year we can reassess and we can reevaluate our stance on it. I'm tending to believe that SEC still has a claim to the throne right now. But I mean, that grip strength is getting weaker by the day, by the year, and but I think it's good for the sport, right? I don't think you need a conglomerate at the top. I don't think you need the SEC to be the best. Good conversation to have 2 conferences really duking it out, and right now Big Ten is doing their thing. So we're gonna catch a break here. When we come back, we're gonna talk some more Texas A&M football. Specifically, the fall roster came out. Some really interesting weight changes up and down for some guys. We'll go through it all here on The Zone.
Do you need help with your air conditioning? Like, it can be fast repairs. Maybe it's routine maintenance. Maybe you just need a brand new system. Well, Still Creek Mechanical, they're the help you need. You can go get that more information, stillcreekmechanical.com. You can go schedule an AC consultation at stillcreekmechanical.com. And you can get $100 off of all repairs just by saying The Zone, the Louis Bellina Show. Louis Bellina, that's right. Mention any, and you get $100 off of repairs. You can call. It's not just all websites. You can call 979-595-4253. Still Creek Mechanical's Aggie-owned, operated. Still Creek Mechanical, been serving the Brazos Valley for over 20 years. Still Creek Mechanical. They have the services. They can do all the services, all makes, all models, and they treat your home like it's their home. Go to the website, stillcreekmechanical.com.
The Money Machine is now open. The easiest radio contest on the planet. Enter now at Zone1150.com to win $5,000. What are we waiting for? And great weekly prizes, too.
Had to put a little Texas flair in there. Louis Bellina Show on a Friday. Tony Catalina alongside producer Caleb Rappley. George Strait, right? I mean, come on. We talked about the whiplash, and that's funny you said that. That's truly, and I'm being honest with you, I put a lot of time and effort into picking these songs because I do have a wide variety. I love rap music, but I have respect for country. I have respect for the oldies. Like, to me, I had to throw a little George Strait in there. It's something about it. It's just something about it.
Get your Texan LARPing in there.
That's it, yeah. I honestly enjoy it. So the George Strait concert at Kyle Field, I think, was like right before I got here, so I didn't even get a chance.
I think it was 23?
Yeah, and I got here in 24, so.
I didn't go either.
No?
I should have, but I didn't. Tickets were crazy.
I've heard, so shout out to some people on the beat. They, worked it, right? They became media members because it's there and you got a chance, So I do wish I would have saw that. But to more pressing news other than my music, Texas A&M has unveiled its preseason fall camp roster. Different weights, different situations. We're looking at some guys who have added some weight, some guys who have lost some weight. And obviously with this, I thought, I'll say this before we kind of get into it, is I'm surprised how much people actually care about this stuff. Right? I'm surprised by how intrigued people are. And I get the freshmen, because the freshmen come in and they got about 6 or 7 months before, they get to the field, get to game time, and they want to know what you look like in a college football weight program. But I think it's just another thing that I'm surprised that people and fans really appreciate. And so that's just a good thing for me to understand that, hey, this is, I'm going to serve my viewers, serve my readers and listeners. Shout out to them. They care. And to that point, we had talked about off air just how crazy some of these additions were, or subtractions really. When you look at Mark Naboo, the center, the starting center for the Texas A&M Fighting Aggies, the only returning starter, he lost 23 pounds this offseason. Now, really interesting, because a lot of people think offensive linemen, they got to be big, they got to be bulky. I think that's a guy who's ready to be a lean, mean, pass protecting machine, right? You're going to lose 23 pounds. That's probably to be more nimble on his feet. Now, that's kind of one of the first ones that stood out to me, and there are some crazy ones. And for me, when I look at the tight ends, Keoti Armstrong, the now redshirt freshman tight end, is 285 pounds. That is a big dude. And if you saw him at the celebrity softball thing, he's an athlete. He was bombing some baseballs, right? Softballs, really, to be technically true. But freshman KK Johnson, this one absolutely blew my mind. I don't know if I'm even reading this correctly. He went from 226 pounds to 262 pounds. That's insane.
Yeah, I don't really know how that's possible.
That is insane.
I think that's the biggest change of any player from spring to fall.
It's got to be. And then you look at Evan Jacobson, who went from 217 to 241. That is, you talk about weight gain. And again, so those are a couple guys who down the depth chart, down the roster a little bit. And maybe Keoti will have an impact this year. We'll see how it all shakes out. But for guys who have natural, who are going to really be a part of this team, we talking about Mario Craver going from 165 to 180. I think that's the most important weight that we've seen outside of maybe Marcel Reed, who didn't really, I think he stayed the same weight. Marcel Reed didn't go up at all.
I don't think they changed it, but, we have noticed that he looks more.
He looks bigger.
He looks thicker for sure.
And no doubt about it. And I've been shoulder to shoulder with him. Some of this, too, is part of it is grown man weight. Right now he's an upperclassman. He's getting older. Some of that too, and people talk about muscle weighs more than fat. He's could have lost some baby weight. He's could have lost some of the extra-ness that he had, which he didn't have much extra to lose in the first place. But he's putting on bulk. I agree. Just from seeing him on video and then being in his presence a few times this offseason, he definitely looks bigger. He looks stronger. I think there's more zip in his football. But back to Craver, him playing at 180. You're talking about a guy who's got top 64 pick aspirations next year in the NFL draft. He's a guy who might find himself, if he can be himself and be the guy he needs to be at 180 instead of 165, it helps his draft stock immensely. Because 165 is light in the shorts, man. That's tough.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. You're looking at it. You're going through it. Anybody kind of stick out to you as, negative or positive? When you look at the weights, is there something that kind of stands out?
So I'm very impressed by all of the freshmen that have come in, and these are the freshmen that enrolled early, so they were here in the spring. Jaden Warren, Brandon Arrington, and Tamarian Watkins, I think, are all showing that they have what it takes to put in the work and earn a starting spot. And these are all guys that, probably not expected to get super high in the depth chart as true freshmen, but there are definitely going to be opportunities afforded to them if they continue to work hard like they have shown that they can do. So Jaden Warren put on 20 pounds. He is now a 6'1", 214-pound wide receiver. We've got Brandon Arrington, who was very hyped and, kind of similar to a Terry Bussey when he was recruited as far as, the athlete designation. And,
sure.
Most people assumed that he would end up a defensive back, which is what he's listed as. But I'm excited to see him play. I think that he definitely has the frame to be an elite corner, and with the weight that he's put on over the offseason, going up from 185 to 201 pounds, so I think he was 6'2", 201.
Yeah.
As a true freshman cornerback, that's very impressive. And then the last one I mentioned, and somebody who's going to have opportunity early in the season to get into the linebacker rotation is Tamarion Watkins.
Yes.
With Damian Sanford probably not going to be, assuming he's not ready to go right out the gate, I think that's going to give Watkins an opportunity to contribute as a true freshman. 6'3", 228 now instead of 201 when he came to campus back in January. So I think those three guys have a really big opportunity now as true freshmen to contribute.
So it's funny you mention that because it reminded me of a great point of why, for media members, access matters, right? Being able to talk to these guys and really kind of pick their brain really matters. Because when we had talked to Damian Sanford in Tampa, what is it, 2 weeks now? 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, when we talked to Damian Sanford, he mentioned, and he called him T-Watt. And some people were like, who is he talking about? Because he had to figure out the nickname. But he was talking about Tamarion Watkins as somebody that stood out to him. Now, when they tell you, you believe them and you listen. So when I heard T-Watt, I made a mental note. I wrote it down. Somebody I'm going to be looking at. These guys don't get brought up unless there's a reason for it. And also, I think it was him, and it might actually have been Marcus Ratcliffe, and somebody can correct me in the text line at 979-693-1150 if you know the Texas Mobile One Luber Express inbox. I believe Marcus Ratcliffe's the one who said it was Angelo McCullum that has looked impressive to him, and he's the guy that's come in from Illinois, if I believe I got that correct. And so when you look at some of the players that the players are saying stand out, that is something that's impressive. So Tamarion Watkins putting on some weight as a freshman. There is room there for a freshman to kind of make his presence felt, at least early in the season with Damian Sanford, whatever the case may be there, and his injury and how long he may be out, if at all. But you mentioned somebody there that it impressed me from the first time I saw him, and that was Jaden Warren. I saw him in the workout room. He was lifting with the offensive guys in April. When I did the Marcel story, kind of got to sit back and be a fly on the wall. And I remember he didn't have a shirt on. It was just sounds weird for me to say that, but he had just shorts on.
I wasn't going to say anything.
He had just shorts on and he was working out. And I remember looking at one of the support staff, because usually you see the number, you notice the face, and I didn't recognize him at first. And I'm like, who is that? And they're like, oh, that's Jaden Warren. I'm like, damn, the freshman freshman wide receiver. And then he stepped up and he was, I'm talking about like an 8-pack. And that was in April.
Yeah.
This guy an 8-pack. So for him to be as big, strong, and as fast as he is, a lot of conversation about Aaron Gregory, and that's totally justified. 100% justified. Aaron Gregory should be getting conversation. I don't think Jaden Warren should be forgotten either in this conversation. And to me, when you open up another can of worms, that puts a little bit more pressure on a guy like Jerome Miles, who is coming off injury, who's got to find a way to play, and he ended up gaining some weight too. Is that correct? Did we say that correct with Jerome?
Yeah, he went up from 220 to 230. 230.
Yeah, he's 230
as a wide receiver.
And he's a big dude. Now, he's a big, strong, and he has a big lower half. I remember watching him this time last year before he got injured again. He was impressive. Like, he's built like a stallion. You know what I mean? He's got a big lower half, and he's strong, and he's tough. I'm interested to see what it'll look like. We got so much more of this roster we're going to talk about here. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the two deep depth chart, how I think it'll shape out before fall camp, and we'll kind of go through it all, dissect it. I'll get Caleb's thoughts here on The Zone.
Spend your summer with The Zone.
Summer.
Yeah. The Zone 1150 AM and 93.7 FM, where football has no off-season.
Louis Bellina Show, Friday edition. Run this town. We're going to run this show for the last little less than 30 minutes here before I kind of do my send-off, and I'm done. I'm done on Fridays for the summer. That means the summer's over. It means my time here is over with that. But when I hear that song, I think of football. I don't know who did it, and I want to, there's no free shout-outs anyway, but, for me, when I hear that song, there was some station that played like a hype video for like playoff football, and it got me fired up. So when I was thinking like, hey, football season, let's go. Who's going to run this town? Who's going to run the CFP? And I think right now, if you ask Curt Cignetti, he would say the Big Ten. But with that being said, I wanted to take a look into a more depth look at this roster. Obviously, we're going to have so much go unfold, so much to dissect. Real football talk. We don't have to do opinion pieces anymore. We don't have to do, observations or listicles. We're soon. We're getting out of the doldrums of the summer and really going to have some things to talk about. But before we do, I want to kind of set the table a little bit with just a too deep look at this roster. Now, this is just my opinion. This is just me kind of doing educated guesses. Some of it is a little bit of what I've heard, what I think, what I know, and you guys can take it with a grain of salt. I hope you guys respect where I'm coming from with this, because I think it's going to be a little different. I think it's going to bear out a little different than some people think. So I'm going to start at quarterback. I'm going to go all the way through. I'm going to get Caleb's point and let him interject where he thinks and maybe what he has some questions or what he may have a different opinion, because I'm not always right. As we can see by Mike Elko's tweet last night, he dunked on me. I'm not always right. But with that one being said, it started at the quarterback room. There's absolutely no discussion to be had. Obviously, it's Marcel Reed at QB1. But at QB2, Brady Hart, right? I think he pencils in as the number 2 guy, but it gets interesting. Can Helman Kutsuga, could Eli Marcos, like where is that number 2 guy? And then honestly, no shade to Brady Hart, we just haven't seen it. It becomes a really dicey situation if Marcel Reed misses some time. How much confidence do we have in that quarterback room if Marcel asked to miss time?
I like Brady Hart. And I know we didn't see him in any real meaningful action last year, but we did see him make some really nice throws.
Was it Utah State where he came in?
I think it was Utah State. Yeah, that sounds right. And I really think he looked better than Miles O'Neal did.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much stock you can put in that.
Oh, and Sanford, too. Sanford, I think he had some good time in Sanford.
Well, we played all 4 quarterbacks against Sanford.
Yeah.
I think I
got a rep.
Yeah. So. Yeah, there you go. So I like Brady Hart a lot. I think if Marcel does go down, he probably is, especially with Kasuga being a true freshman.
Right.
I don't think they're going to throw him to the wolves like that if that's the situation. I think Hart is, we'll see if he ever gets a chance to start full time. But I'm a Brady Hart truther.
Sure. And to me, right, I look at it as 2 schools of thought, in my opinion, when you look at this position and how they handled it is, one, did they feel like they wanted to allocate resources when they had other places they had to put money in to help reload, not rebuild right now? 2, is it just being honest that they think Brady Hart is the guy, right? Because you see teams across the country, including this conference, like bring in transfer portal guys. They did it last year when they brought in his name's
Jacob Zeno.
Yes, Jacob Zeno. And so he's a guy who was like a 7th-year quarterback. And so you see that, and they've done it.
Should have brought Max Johnson back.
Yeah, I mean, he's still got eligibility, right? He's out here still doing his thing.
He's somewhere. I don't remember where. I have to look that up.
But to my point is really 2 schools of thought, and I think we'll be able to get an assessment when we're on the practice field, is do they truly believe in Brady Hart, or is it more of like, hey, just being smart, we got different resources, and we got to manage our money in a different way? Either way, that's kind of the way it shakes out. I do agree. I think Brady Hart is a clear QB2. Just for the sake of conversation, do you think people can kind of unseat that? We'll wait to see and just see how that shakes out. Running back room. I think for me, it's easy. It's obvious. It's Reuben Owens, and somebody who, if you ask me, I'm bullish on him, and I didn't think I was as more bullish on him as I thought other people were, which the conversation around him is really fascinating because I think he's a talented kid. I think advanced analytics tells you he's more talented than people give him credit for, but because it's not Le'Veon Moss, because he had stumbled out of the blocks, like metaphorically and literally last year at times, there's been situations where maybe people are down on him, and I don't think it's necessarily fair. I think as a starting running back in the SEC, is he Ahmad Hardy? Probably not, right? Is he Kawan Lacey? Probably not. But he's a guy you can lean on. He's a workhorse. He's led the team in rushing attempts last year. He led the team in rushing yards. So for me, he pencils in at running back 1. Behind him, I got Jamarian Morrow. And to me, I think there's a lot of people that are excited about him. But I think the question becomes, when and if does KJ Edwards kind of unseat him? In my opinion. Because I've seen KJ Edwards. I've seen the high school tape. I've seen him in the spring. I've seen some things. I've talked to some people. The kid is a stud. Like I told him to his face that he reminded me of a Georgia version of DeAndre Swift. And so that's how I view him. And that was me being honest, and I don't throw that around lightly. He reminded me of DeAndre Swift. He told me he wanted to be more like Jahmyr Gibbs, but I digress. So so my question, Caleb, and I don't know if you agree, do you think Reuben is safely at running back 1? Do you think the Jamarian Morrow can be unseated at running back 2? What's your assessment of a brand new looking running back room from what we've seen over the last couple of years?
So I do think that I feel better and more confident that Reuben is the number 1 than I feel Morrow's the number 2.
Okay.
I think Ruben's the clear number 1 going into the season, at least, just because of, seniority, and that's not going to determine, if that's not going to. A worse player isn't going to start because he's been there longer. Mm-hmm. But I think that these 3 backs are all close enough together that if you don't have a strong feeling towards one of them, then you give it to Ruben because you know that he is an SEC level running back. And then as far as between Morrow and Edwards, I think the ceiling is much higher with KJ Edwards.
Sure.
And I really like Jamorian Morrow. He looked really good.
Yeah.
And, he a little, honestly, more action than I expected him to get last year. And I think he's more closer to a receiving back type player. So I think as far as like a third down running back, I think it probably will be Morrow. I think he makes the most sense for those situations. But as far as like who's really getting second team reps, I think KJ Edwards is going to get a lot of playing time this year. He a 6,000-yard rusher in his high school career, coming off a year
bananas.
In 2025 as a senior, he ran for 31 touchdowns. So he's been, as long as he's been playing competitive football, he has been the dude on his team.
Yeah.
So, we'll see if he can bring that mentality and mindset to the SEC.
And to that point, we had talked about how multiple they are with running backs. I think 4 or 5 guys got to tote the rock last year in any given game, in any given series. So, I mean, you talk even throwing Tiger Ryden in there, he's going to get opportunities. So I think there's 3 or 4 guys in that running back room that are going to get the football. I think we're just talking too deep just for semantics, but I think expect everyone in that room to get a touch and an opportunity to make an impact, especially if they've earned it.
Yeah.
And then kind of shifting gears to wide receiver, I think 1 through 3 is just about as easy as of a conversation as you can have. X receiver by Isaiah Horton, Z will be Ashton Bethel Roman, and the slot will be Mario Craver. Where it gets interesting to me is who's the backups in those spots. And much like running back, they're going to be multiple. Like, there's going to be 6, 7 guys who are playing substantial snaps. And those guys, to me, is probably Aaron Gregory at the X, and this is all, like, interchangeable, right? Like, Gregory at the X, you get TK Norman, who could be a slot guy, or just be a speedster like Ashton Bethel, and then the true slot would probably be Terry Bussey, where he's like a Swiss Army knife, like you'd mentioned off air. Like, Terry Bussey can do a million things, right? He could be a true wide receiver, he can be out of the backfield, he can just do different things. The question for me is, those are 6. Where does Jerome Miles factor in? Where does a Jaden Warren factor in? Mike Brown? There's so many different pieces that I think they're going to see unfold and kind of work out for them, where if they're going 3-4 wide and attrition happens, we're going to see a bunch of wide receivers. So I think one of the deepest roster positions, on the team. But what do you think? I mean, is there really much discussion there, or is it more so like, hey, like, we got a deep stable, they're going to be it's going to be good?
I think that there's a lot of discussion for those backup spots.
Okay, yeah. No, you're probably right.
For the top 3, I agree. I think it's very clear-cut. Horton, ABR, and Craver.
Yes.
Probably not in that order exactly, but
sure.
They all have different strengths, and they do kind of all fit in those different spots. Like, I think ABR could be a slot receiver if we didn't have Craver, but Craver is like the stereotypical slot receiver.
Sure.
A little smaller guy, really, really speedy and shifty.
Two-way go.
Yeah. So those are the 3. For sure, no doubt in my mind.
Yep.
The second string is where it really gets interesting, because there's for the 3 backup spots, I think there's at least 5, maybe 6 guys that have a say. My 3 is Terry Bussey, which I don't know that necessarily he'll be used in just a receiver role. I think he will be more like an Ananias Smith that we saw a few years back as an Aggie. Very versatile guy, can line up in the backfield or in the slot or on the outside. Sure. So I don't think he'll be limited to just that. But I've loved Terry Bussey. I saw him play in high school, so I've always kind of had an emotional attachment to him also. So maybe a little bit of a homer there, biased. But I think somebody that keeps getting forgotten just because of how many players have come into this wide receiver room is Jerome Miles. And if he is fully healthy and is 100%, and back to what we knew he could do as a senior in high school with that speed and the added size that he has now at 230 pounds.
Yeah.
I think he can be the first guy off the bench for Isaiah Horton at the X spot.
Sure.
In my opinion.
So speeding through it a little bit here because we got a few to go and we got a few minutes before the break. Tight end, I got starter Houston Thomas with backup Richie Anderson. I think because Mike O'Reilly is a captain, I think he's going to have a role, but I think A&M brought in these guys to be receiving threats. I think Mike O'Reilly is going to be really strong in the run game, and I think he's going to be a good blocker. In the pass game, we'll see where that kind of bears out, but I don't think they brought these two guys in to not play them, and that's just kind of my opinion on that. The offensive line, we can have an hour-long conversation about this, right? And it just, to me, how it's going to shake out will really be fundamentally solved in the preseason camp. I think it's going to go Tyree Adams at left tackle, Blake Ivy at left guard, Mark Newwood center, right guard Trevon Barr, and right tackle Wilkin Formby. With that, I think the tackles behind them are Lamont Rogers and Robert Bordon. I actually do think that Bordon can play guard too. So I think Bordon's going to be like the offensive line Swiss piece. If he doesn't win a starting job, I think they can put him really anywhere, right? I think he can play any spot. And then behind that would be Ashton Funk and it'd be Tyler Thomas. So, Mike Elko has talked about how just deep this guy, like this group is. It's new. Right, there's a lot of new faces, but he feels good about 8 or 9 guys that can go out and play some snaps, and I expect probably most of them will. At defensive line, I got edge starting Antosaka, nose tackle CJ Mims, defensive tackle DJ Hicks, and then at jack is Marco Jones. I don't know what the middle is going to look like. I know it's going to be DJ Hicks, but does Antosaka get to start? I think he does. Or is it TJ Searcy? Is Sam Mpemba the next guy up at jack? Is it Brandon Davis-Swaim at defensive tackle? And behind C.J. Mims is Angelo McCullum. Now, where does Landon Rink, fall into that, right? There's other pieces. There's other guys. So they did bring in, and you got to follow the decision-making. They did bring in 3 guys on the transfer portal. So I think they brought them in to play. Some of them are veterans. I'm interested to see exactly how that's going to shake out. At linebacker, I put an asterisk there because obviously – if Damian Sanford is healthy, it's going to be Damian Sanford and Ray Coney as the 2 starters, okay? But I put Noah McKayla with the asterisk. Behind him would be Jordan Lockhart. And then you try to figure out, is it Tamarian Watkins? Is it Tank King? Is it Storm Miller? Linebacker is going to be a low-key, exciting thing to watch for because we don't know how it's going to shake out because of injury and because of all of that. Secondary, for me, is really, there's a little thing, there's micro battles going on, but for the most part, Des Ricks is going to start. I believe it's going to be Ricky Gibson is going to start a field corner. I had Des at boundary corner. Nickel, I think Jordan Shaw is going to win out, but if it isn't him, is it Bryce Anderson? And then your 2 safeties are 2 captains, right? It's going to be Dalton Brooks and Marcus Ratcliffe. Behind them is it Taufik Bayard. Is it, Adonis Curry at corner? Is it Miles Davis at free safety? Julio Humphrey, who I was told do not count out as a starter, as potential starter. I think Taufik Bayard's going to be a big nickel. I think he has a chance to play multiple different spots. I just threw a ton at you because I wanted to get it in. But initial thoughts before we hit a break here, we probably got a minute before we got to hit that. But what do you think? I think when you look at this roster, a lot of talent. More talent than probably people give it credit for. Probably a lot more talent than the preseason rankings and awards gave them.
I'm looking for Julio Humphrey to take a big jump.
I think so, too.
He was somebody that had a lot of hype coming in, and then, kind of similar to like Jerome Miles in the receiver room, he's been kind of overwhelmed by the amount of people that have also come into that secondary and are going to put up a fight for playing time. But yeah, I think this is the year that we really see what we thought we would see from Julio Humphrey.
I think I'm part of the problem there. I came in last year thinking Julio Humphrey was going to start, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that was before I kind of knew the steps that Des Ricks took.
Right.
I thought it was going to be Julio and Will Lee and Des Ricks would be the odd man out. I was wrong, and Des Ricks kind of took that and snatched it and hasn't taken it away since. With that being said, we're going to hit a break here. We're going to do our goodbyes, thank yous, and all of that, and we're going to wrap up here, hour 2 here on The Zone.
The Houston Astros play in the zone. Thanks to Kelly Bird Dozer.
Louis Molina Show. The final few minutes here of the final Friday with Tony Catalina and Caleb Rapoli, the wonderful, talented producer here. I wanted to go out with, a little Frankie Blue Eyes, a little Frank Sinatra. Did it my way. Appreciate all of the time and effort we put in to be able to do this, and I really appreciate Louis for giving me the opportunity, and I appreciate you, the listeners. Obviously, we're nothing without you. And so to end it right, we got a few text messages we're going to hit on before we get out of here. Again, really appreciate you guys hitting the Texas Mobile One Lube Express inbox.
So all of these are having to do with the SEC versus Big Ten discussion we had at the start of this hour. Brian in McGregor says, how much does the SEC, being the toughest conference from top to bottom, contribute to team health at the end of the year, and as a result, possibly limiting championship runs?
That's my point. I totally agree with that. It's cannibalism. They're beating each other up, and then at the end of the day, they're playing a Big Ten team that doesn't nearly have the attrition.
And then RJ and Joe both have similar questions here. RJ says, are you judging a conference by national championships or by all teams in the conference? And then Joe says, my problem with the Big Ten is there's like 1 or 2 good teams at the top and 15 bad teams that are easy to beat.
Sure. We had talked about that, and I agree to a degree that SEC top to bottom is the most talent-rich conference in football, and it's tough the Big Ten is top, has been better than anybody else's top over the last 3 years, but that's what I look at it in totality, right? Like every year somebody's going to win the championship, but I don't look at the conference as like this great thing because the conference had a champion, right? Like, and we don't. SEC, they have the most talent, they have the most draft picks, they've won the most over the last 25 years. Like, it's just for them, that's the body of work that I would stand on, and for me, I agree with that sentiment. There are probably more wire-to-wire better teams in the SEC, but again, I sound small saying that because they own the last 3 championships.
And then our final text here in the Texas Mobile One Lube Express inbox, Russell in the Hill Country says, good job, fellas. Enjoyed listening to y'all.
I appreciate that, honestly. Thank you so much, Caleb. Thank you, Louie. Thank you, everybody that allowed us to do this. With me, like I said at the top, with me being done here, that means that football is around the corner. We're getting back to regularly scheduled programming. I'm glad I was able to kind of do this for the last 4 weeks. Hopefully I didn't sound too nervous. Hopefully I didn't sound too bad. And hopefully I made the listeners proud, right? Like, I'm somebody who wanted to do this. This is kind of scratching an itch, a dream for me. I don't take anything I do for granted. Thank you again, Caleb.
Absolutely.
And any final thoughts from you? I talked for 2 hours over the last 8? I probably talked for 6 of the 8 hours.
Something like that. I just enjoy getting to have the banter like this because a lot of times when I get to come on these shows, I'm by myself.
Yeah.
So it's much more fun with a co-host for sure, or a producer, or however you want to look at it. But I just think it's way more fun that way.
My original plan, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I knew I wanted to get you involved because I knew your takes and what you wanted to talk about.
I appreciate that.
Before we get out of here, we're going to open the ticket booth. Like I said, it's open now. Call the number at 979-693-1150. Caller number 5 now wins a $50 gift card to Rudy's Barbecue. Thank you by the Dixie Tire Company. That is it for me. That is all for us. Appreciate you guys. Thank you. You'll be hearing me on Wednesdays. You'll be seeing me on Saturdays. Thank you so much here on The Zone.